Well, hello, Canadian Campaholic here, coming to you from the storage lot. It is getting into the tail end of June now, and we received some great news this week in Ontario that we're entering phase 1 of the reopening plan. That means camping! So, that was cheesy. But anyway, we have a reservation coming up very soon, and I figured it would be canceled like the rest, but it is actually going to be the kickoff to the 2021 season. Those of you that follow the channel, though, know that I have been having some issues with the tires on our trailer. This is a 2018 Forest River 197BH, and the cheap, horrible Castle Rock tires that are on there started to develop weather checking on the sidewall. That's the cracking on the sidewall of the tires. Drove it for another season, or used it for another season, but over the course of the past winter, the cracks have got a lot worse. Had plans to replace them, but for a variety of reasons I held off, but then now that we know we are going camping, got to change them. So if you come over this way, I did pick up a pair of Lodestar. These are ST205 75R15s on rims. I don't want to be messing around with trying to take a tire off of a rim. These are still maybe not the best tire around. They're not as good as like a Goodyear Endurance, but the reason that I picked these up is that there's a trailer supply place in the city where I live that has a fabulous reputation, and they offered this to me as an economical option. So each tire, brand new, the DOT is 06 of 21, on a rim, brand new tire was about $130 plus tax each, and you can't really beat that. Now granted, they're not made in North America. They may not be as good as, say, a Goodyear Endurance, but from what the dealer told me, they've had good luck with them. Now if you've had Lodestar and you've had good luck or bad luck, feel free to pop some comments down below, let me know what you think. But the goal today is for me to take the old wheels off, put the new ones on. Now I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a mechanic, I'm not an RV dealer, I'm just an amateur guy figuring this out. So if you see things I'm doing wrong, or you have tips or hints or suggestions, again, feel free to pop that down in the comments. So we're going to use a variety of different tools to perform this job. I have a bottle jack, which I've featured on one of my other videos about how to jack up a trailer. It's got a 2-ton capacity, so I'm going to use the bottle jack. I've also picked up a number of sockets. I've had a real hard time figuring out what the bolt size is, or the nut size for the lug nuts on here. I measured them at 20 millimeters. I bought a 20 millimeter socket, but I don't think the socket's deep enough. So I'm actually going to end up using a 13/16 socket. It's got a little tiny bit of play, which does make me a bit concerned because I don't want to round the lug nuts off, but it's as close as I could get. I did get one of these fancy sockets for Christmas where it's a multitude of sizes, but the max is out at 3/4 inch, and it's too small. The other thing that I'm going to recommend that you get if you're going to do this is this big long guy here. This is a breaker bar. If you've had your trailer serviced like I have, and they've got a little trigger happy with the impact wrench, then those lug nuts are going to be extremely tight. So having a breaker bar like this is going to help us loosen them. I've already done that to a few of them, and they're coming off great. The flip side of it is you probably want to get some jack stands as well. Also, if you have the trailer hooked up to your tow vehicle while you're doing this, if it's on a weight distribution hitch, take the weight distribution hitch piece off, because that downward pressure from the weight distribution hitch could make this a little unstable when you're trying to change the wheel. And then the other thing that I'm going to show you as well, which I picked up on Amazon, is a really nice torque wrench. It's one of the ones where it clicks when you reach it. For our particular trailer, the torque specs is about 100 foot-pounds, so that's what we're going to torque these the lug nuts up to. So I'm going to loosen off the lug nuts. I'm going to jack up the trailer, finish taking the lug nuts off, get the wheel off, get the new one on, so on and so forth. I'm also going to make sure that when we get to our destination on the weekend that I recheck those torque specs to make sure that everything is torqued nicely, and I'll explain more about that later. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I am fat, I am out of shape, I had way too much spaghetti for supper. I think I got some of it on my shirt, and this is not going to be pretty. My son has changed the camera angle so you don't have to look at my butt crack, but basically we've got an extension here on the breaker bar here, and I'm going to put this on one of the lug nuts, get it nice and snug, and then just use the leverage that you have very carefully. There we go. to loosen that sucker off. Now again, I'm a little concerned because I don't know that 13/16 is the exact right size, but we are able to loosen it off without breaking. So you want to take, like anytime you're changing a tire, you want to do this step while the trailer is on the ground. You don't want the trailer to be rocking and rolling while you have it up in the air, especially if you're just using a little bottle jack like I'm using today. I forgot my jack stands. You should probably use jack stands as well if you've got them to be safe. But yeah, this breaker bar is making a big difference. So I'm not going to show you the whole process of jacking the trailer up. I got a whole separate video on that. But let's rejoin the action in a few moments when I catch my breath and we have this sucker jacked up. So you rejoin the action, and I told you I'd get hot and sweaty. We had to adjust the bottle jack several times to get it in position because the issue we have, we're on a bit of a dip here under the tire, and because of the suspension, the tire wasn't coming up high enough to get it clear. You probably could and should put the bottle jack maybe on the suspension itself, but that's way underneath the trailer, and I don't want my head under there if something goes wrong. Again, jack stands would make a big difference. The other issue we're running into is that the lug nuts, they weren't greased or anything when they were put back on, and so they are being a little bit stubborn to come off. Even though they are quote-unquote finger tight, I can't use my hands to take them off. I got to keep spinning the wrench to get the suckers off. But anyway, this is almost done. What we'll do is we'll pull the tire off. We'll get the new tire in place, try to put the bolts back on finger tight, and then I'll show you as we torque them down. The order in which you tighten them is critical because these wheels, they're not cambered or anything like that for when the trailer turns. So there's an awful lot of pressure and force on the rim and the hub as you are turning around corners with the trailer. If you go and Google, there's a lot of different diagrams and sites that'll do a better job than me in explaining the order in which you tighten them, but you don't want to just go in a circle. You want to kind of go across and go opposite in like a star pattern. But again, go Google that and it'll give you all the details. Maybe I'll pop a link in the description. So gonna finish taking this last little lug nut off and then get the wheel off, get the new one in place, start tightening it down, and then I'll test out my new torque wrench, see if it works. So like every job I do in life, it always ends up being way more difficult than I thought it would be. The issue we've got is, again, not a lot of travel on the bottle jack. I am putting it on the frame of the trailer, and this frame, like a lot of modern trailers, is fairly high up. The other issue we ran into is that I'm in a bit of a divot. I think as this has sat on the pavement over the course of the winter, the pavement has sunk a little bit underneath the weight of the trailer. So all those things were working against us. We finally got the old tire clear, got it off the trailer, but then when we went to put the new one on, it was properly inflated to 50 PSI. It wouldn't go on. So I had to let a little bit of air out of the tire. I also put the tire in from the bottom two studs first, gave it a little bit of a knock with my foot, of course being very gentle because it's only on a bottle jack, and was able to get the tire in place. How would I remedy this in the future? Well, yeah, I would seriously think about putting a pipe on the end of the bottle jack because it's a nightmare to pump this thing up if you're a weakling like me, so having a pipe on the end for leverage would help. I'd also probably put it under the suspension so that you're compressing the suspension and lifting everything up. With any kind of wheel job like this, you've got to factor in the fact that once the suspension relaxes and drops, that means you're going to have to crank it even higher to be able to get the wheel off. But anyway, long story short, the wheel is now on. The lug nuts are on, and I've tightened them down most of the way, but I'm actually going to let the jack down now, and then I'm going to torque them to the 100 foot-pounds. Make sure you check your owner's manual and the specs on the side of your trailer to see what your torque set specs are for your lug nuts. But for this trailer, 22-foot Salem Cruise Light 197 BH, it's 100 foot-pounds. So you'll rejoin the action in a minute once we start torquing these suckers down. All right, so almost had a heart attack. No, I'm just kidding. But so out of shape, this is exhausting. Torquing it down to 100 foot-pounds sucked. But I want to draw your attention to this right here. This is the outer seal for the Dexter Easy Lube. And for some reason, this has got a hole in it. Not really sure why that is. I had the bearings serviced 2 years ago, so they're going to be due this November. But I've never seen that. The rubber covering over the Dexter Easy Lube, that's your Zerk fitting in there, your grease stipple. The rubber part on the other side is solid. It doesn't have a hole in it. So if any of you guys have encountered this where for some reason there's a hole, let me know. I guess I could just put a piece of Gorilla Tape over it or something like that. I don't want grit and stuff getting in there and messing up the Zerk fitting. I'll check with the dealer and the service center just to see what they suggest. But anyway, we've, if you want to back up, Ramey, we've cracked all of the lug nuts with the breaker bar. We've got it jacked up. Hopefully this time we get better clearance. Again, same thing. We'll then use a wrench just to start, a ratchet rather, to start loosening off the lug nuts. Pull the old wheel off, get the new one in place, get it fairly snug, lower the jack, and then again torque to 100 foot-pounds, which, man, I'm out of shape, and that was exhausting. But anyway, I'm saving myself a little bit of money and making sure we can go camping safely, so I guess that's a good thing. We'll talk to you at the end of the video. So this side was a lot easier. We still do have an indentation. This must be fairly fresh asphalt where this trailer's parked, because once again we had a divot under the tire. So note to self, next time pull the trailer forward. But this one we were able to jack up without a problem. We were able to get the nuts off no problem. Tires back in place, fully inflated. Didn't have to let any air out. So now I just got the torque wrench on here, again torquing to 100 foot-pounds. So keep doing it till it clicks. Like that. And then basically we're going to torque them in the star pattern, and then one last quick check all around just to make sure they stayed in torque specs. So I wanted to give you a better look at why I chose to replace these tires. So let me see if I can zoom in here a bit. So if you look around the edge of the tire, there's some really bad weather checking going on there. And you can see there's the DOT. So right here, second week of 2017. So these tires are between 4 and 5 years old. Should have lasted at least 5 before you saw any signs of weather checking. And you can see that in a lot of places here, the cracks were getting pretty thick, pretty wide. Last year they were hairline cracks, but then of course over the course of another winter with all the old UV and everything else and wear and tear, the cracks got worse. Now, maybe I could have got another season out of these, but I really didn't want to take the chance. I will keep these for now just as spares. I have a full spare on the back. It is also Castle Rock, but it is thankfully not cracked. I probably could have kept the rims and then had somebody change out the tires, but just for the sake of speed and convenience, I bought them on rims. And again, the ones I picked up were about 135 Canadian plus tax. So anyway, let's speed this video up a bit and wrap it up. So that took me a little bit over an hour to do. And if you're younger or fitter than me and smarter, you probably could have got through this a little faster. The tires are all on. Now for final preparation in terms of getting the trailer ready for camping, I will return the deep cycle battery into the battery box. It's been on a smart charger all winter. I'm going to fill up one of our two 20-pound propane tanks and hook up the propane. Normally prior to the first trip, I would wash the trailer. I would clean off the black streaks. I'd wash the roof. I would check all the seals. Haven't really had the opportunity to do that. Once we move to our new place and I can park Toby, as we call him, in our driveway, a lot of that maintenance will be easier for me to do, and I'll probably film some of that for you guys as I show you kind of the things I do to look after the trailer. No signs of any leaks inside, no signs of any mice. The damp rid or damp check has done its job to keep things nice and dry in there. We had antifreeze through the plumbing, so the plumbing should all be good to go. We'll just have to drain all that out. When we go to our first trip, I'll probably show you how I de-winterize and show you a little bit about our trip, so we can start adding some more stuff to the channel. But yeah, that wraps this video up. Thank you very much, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe, smack that like button, as they say, and we'll talk to you later.